And welcome to Inside the Thin Blue Line. Dave Rattigan here with retired police officer Dale Lawrence, not his real name. And we have two guests today this week. These and like Dale, they're not using their real names.
I think one of them might be.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm not sure which one.
This is your real name?
That is my real name.
Okay, Juan is on my right. I didn't know. I just assumed, since everybody here wants to be anonymous except for me. Well, Juan, thank you for being brave enough. All right, now, unlike Dale.
You're welcome.
Brave enough to actually use your real name.
I just keep it real, you know.
and Ray, you're on my left. Juan's on my right. You're a firefighter.
Yes.
And you're Spanish?
Correct.
Okay, and by Spanish we mean from
Hispanic, Puerto Rican.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. And Juan,
Can you prove it? Say something in Spanish.
Do you have your birth certificate?
Hola.
Hola. Okay.
You guys see that?
If you could say hola, you're definitely from the islands. And Juan, how about you? How do you identify?
Hispanic.
Hispanic.
Yes.
Okay. Hispanic and dark Hispanic.
The Hispanic, okay. Dominican, so.
All right.
How do you identify?
Me?
Like ghost white?
I think I'm a cisgender. I'm a cisgender. He, him, his, white male.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, white privileged male.
All right, very good.
which I'm told makes me a racist. Sorry, guys. But we're going to talk a little bit about racial profiling from the user end, with you guys being the users, or maybe from the used end. I don't know, but from the side of somebody who's actually dealing with cops. And you guys are both respectable people. Is that a good term for you?
I would say so.
It's the best
I would
term
say so.
for it,
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we'll get this. We'll get to this in a few minutes. But
basically, what Dave's trying to say is you've never been arrested, neither one of you.
Right. Well, no. Well, even if they've been arrested, I'm just basically saying that there's, it seems like one of the issues with racial profiling that gets everybody outraged is when people who are not doing anything. They don't have the marijuana sticker on the back of the car and get pulled over. They're just people who are living their lives and they get hassled simply because of the color of their skin, or they're, I don't know, music. You ever get pulled over for music, you think?
Oh, yeah.
So, these are the things that I think, these are the things that are tough to defend. When you pull over a carload of kids driving too fast, smoke billowing out of the windows. I know that's legal now. I don't think it's legal when you're driving.
No, you can't drive stoned.
Things like that. That's those are probably, I wouldn't say legitimate, but they're at least you could make the argument that these are people who probably you should take another look at. But when you're pulling somebody over, or when you've got and I know this is not cops, but when you've got a security guard, you ever been in a retail store buying clothing and you find somebody's following you?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a pretty common thing. That's what I'm hearing. No one's ever followed me. Actually, people have followed me and they've avoided me.
If you're stuffing clothes in a duffel bag, wouldn't they be following you, Dave?
I know. We think you sell that shovel and pail because you got the handle sticking out the back of your shirt. But we're going to do a couple of current events before we get back to that topic. Broward County School Resource Officer Scot Peterson faces charges of neglect of a child, culpable negligence, perjury, for failing to act during the Parkland school shooting back in 2018. He was a former school resource officer, and he's accused of hiding during the school shooting in Florida that left 17 people dead. He had a hearing on Wednesday and said that he never would have sat idle if he had known people were being killed. So Peterson, his attorney tried to dismiss the child negligence charges. But that's an interesting one.
From my perspective, I think from a cop's perspective, even people who are in the military, most cops, just by their nature, and most people, former military people by their nature, by their instinct, they run to the sound of gunfire.
Right.
Now, I don't know, is that high school soundproof? His initial comment, I didn't know that people were getting shot, but people yelling and screaming. So I think that's probably where the perjury charges. You didn't know people were getting shot? Mm-hmm. How are you going to explain that?
How loud is the rifle that was used in that shooting, or do you know?
Yeah, well, it's an AR. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be muffled, but it's going to be loud because it's Florida. It's hot. There's got to be some windows open, and yeah, I know you can hear
air
it.
Conditioning on.
Well, you would think there would be.
Yeah, how are we going to hear the? Well,
you can hear it, Dave.
All right,
trust me.
All right,
Wait a minute.
When we run upstairs and get a gun, go ahead.
When they call in, when they make the call, and it comes in through dispatch. Don't they say, reported shooting at high school?
Shots fired at the high school.
The officer doesn't necessarily have to be there to actually listen to the shots.
Yeah.
He has to respond. Isn't that his duty as a public officer?
It is. I believe he was on campus because there is a video of him being on campus. So that whole premise of you didn't hear it is obviously he can't dispute that.
Well, there's a video of him hiding behind a car.
Yeah.
You got to hear something to be scared enough to hide behind a car.
Yeah.
You're not going to look around and what's that sound? No, he heard it, he knew what it was, and he still hid. So he knew what was going on.
Absolutely.
You think so?
I think so. I do think so. However, I do have a couple of little points from a cop's perspective.
Let me ask you this question before we go to this. We had a former president. I can't remember his name, but he was talking about these, and he said, had he ever been in a school shooting, he would certainly go in there with his gun. Even if he didn't have a gun, he would rush to the shot where the shots were fired. Do you think he would have?
Oh, this former president?
This former president.
People do things in situations where, like, bravery, they've never been tested. Their courage has never been in question. People react out of character. Meaning, I think this cop acted out of character. He's a cop. He probably should have gone in right away, because that's kind of the premise now in law enforcement, that you don't wait for a SWAT team, because a SWAT team may take a half hour, an hour to mount up and get there. In an active shooter situation, most cops are trained to go in right away.
Any cop who's trained is trained to go in right away.
That's pretty much the training. Whether that department, whether that's Broward County's policy to do that, I can't answer that.
Okay.
But that's obviously that's going to come out during the trial. But yeah, if you're the cop there and you're the first one there, you're supposed to go in. Now, would I go in by myself, one person? I don't know. If I saw the shooter and I thought I'd get a good shot at him right off the bat, I'd probably go in. Because the best defense is an offense. Go right at him, with full gun power, and see if you can neutralize the situation.
So you know that there's a shooting, and I know that this is your training, but it's also a thing where some people don't know how they're going to respond to a situation until they're in that situation.
That's right.
And you're saying that some people will do things out of character, go in.
Who you wouldn't think would go in will go in. And people who you think should go in, they're trained to go in, they have a weapon to go in, don't go in.
Yeah. Okay. That makes the red.
I can't explain why he didn't go in, other than my gut would be, he's 56 years old. He's probably going to retire. He said, "Fuck it, I ain't going in." That's human instinct.
Right.
He's just selfish, and he says, "I'm not taking a bullet for anyone."
I don't know if it's that selfish. I mean, it is cowardly and
cowardly,
but
it's also self-preservation. I mean, as from the human perspective, did that department have a policy not to go and wait for at least one other guy? They didn't. They haven't said that yet. Our street cops, even the school resource officers, basic street cop, whether you're on for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, whether you have military training or not, your training is relatively basic, a little bit advanced, but you have SWAT teams and you have reactionary teams that go in for school shooters, and they're more trained to do it.
Right.
So I think people believe that just cops in general can save you in that situation, but most cops aren't really that well trained in situations like that. They're just basically trained.
Right. But how do you train for a situation where you know that there are live bullets on the other end? You know that there are kids being killed.
There's certain ways to enter a building or a school. You have to have knowledge of the building. He was the SRO. He should have had knowledge of every little nook and cranny in that building, whereas a lot of departments don't necessarily have knowledge of certain buildings in their cities and towns. So in that situation, they're just going in blind. They have no idea where he's at. They probably have video in that school.
Yeah.
Because in my community, we have video all over the place. So if there's an issue in a school, all you got to do is pull up the video, and whoever's monitoring the video, which is the police department, they can tell you what room, what corridor, what door to go in. We have all that capability in this community. Now, does every community have that? I don't think they do. A lot of communities are going to that.
Okay. Let me ask this, Ray. You ever run into a burning building?
Yeah.
Okay. This is
Many
the thing
times.
about firefighters all the time is, they run in when everyone else is running out, and it's the burning buildings in this case. And so you have run into a burning building.
I run into a burning building, and I've run into gunfire too.
You've run into what?
I've run into gunfire.
You have?
I manage a nightclub in Boston area where a fight broke out New Year's Eve, and
Who would think that a fight would break out on
New
New
Year's
Year's
Eve.
Boston.
in Boston.
New Year's Eve?
And I knew the guy that got kicked out was trouble.
Yeah.
Big drug dealer guy, he had a reputation. On the way out, I started walking up the door because I knew he had a gun and I knew he had a reputation. So I'm walking to the front of the door because he got escorted out the back. And as soon as I made it to the door, he's walking by shooting. There's video of it. It happened, and he's shooting. As soon as he walked by, I didn't run back. I didn't drop. I went right up behind him. He jumped into an SUV right parked in front and took off. I look over to my left. There's a girl and a guy on the ground. I run over to her. She's in the fetal position. Ask her, "You hit?" "No." "But what are you doing? Get up. Get out of here." I turn around. The kid looks at me and says, "I think I'm hit." Blood pouring all down his leg. I took off my jacket, put it over his leg, put my belt around it, and radioed in that someone got shot. So I wasn't armed. I didn't have a gun. I was in the military for a long time, but this wasn't a textbook situation, but I still ran out. This guy, yeah, I understand, you going by yourself, but what's the difference if you're going by yourself or you're going with two guys? You're still armed, and you're still able to, go up against another target. Just because you don't see them doesn't mean that it's not safe or safe either way. You got to go in. You got to find them. You can't just wait outside for someone else to come in because they're still walking in behind you.
Right.
So
It's so your instincts were trained.
yeah,
It's
it's happened a couple times.
Do you think it was military that trained you? Or do you think it was firefighting that trained you? Or do you think it was nightclubs that trained you?
I think it was a little of all three. I went in military, nightclub, and then being a firefighter. But in all positions, it's always the preservation of someone's life.
So Dale is on the second floor. All right, he's screaming like wah wah wah.
Sounds about right.
Sounds right.
High pitch.
About that.
But the fire is like just devouring the first floor. Do you go get him?
Absolutely.
Even
because we're wearing protective gear.
Yeah.
We're wearing fire retardant uniforms. We're wearing air tanks. We're wearing, protective gloves, masks, helmets. We're wearing what we need to do to get in there. We can't sit in it for a period of time,
Right.
but we can run through it. But if he's not in there and it's coming down and I see it's no point in risking my life for it, yeah, it's going to burn to the ground. Just try to preserve everything around it. But if I know there's a chance, then I'm going to make the effort.
okay.
I actually have a question. Do firefighters, do they have a public oath before initiating,
They do. Offhand, I don't know what it is. I forgot it. It's, to protect life and property and neighbor. And it's, it's a long little ethos type thing, but it does
See,
exist.
so my take on this is, and going back to the police officer, is certainly some lack of integrity or something to the public oath. It might be the situation where, Dale is saying, he's probably almost about to be retired. I don't want to go in there, risk my life. Why would I do that? But clearly, from my perspective, I think that there's some sort of integrity or lack of, in terms of the public oath, which any public officer takes, as far as I know. So that's my view on
I can confirm that.
Right.
You take a oath to uphold the integrity of the badge and to protect citizens and property and innocent lives.
And I can tell you this: Juan's an accountant. I'm a comedian, so I think we can say the guy really should have gone in. You know,
I think he should have gone in, but I'm going to also kind of look at it from a different perspective. This particular kid who shot the school up, he had a lot of mental health issues. He had known mental health issues. He was expelled from